In 1589, one of Shakespeare's literary contemporaries penned a poem in which he depicted a doctor making a deal with the devil and meeting the ghost of Helen of Troy, to which the doctor, Dr. Faust, aghast, remarks, "Was this the face that launched 1,000 ships and burnt the topless towers of Ilium?" Because she was, it was said, possessed of such perfect beauty that soldiers sailed eagerly across the sea to topple the towering turrets of Troy simply to gaze upon her face. And the pursuit of perfection has long haunted human affairs, often luring people into madness. Pygmalion, the ancient king of Cyprus, who swore himself to a life of celibacy in the face of the flaws and faults of what he deemed to be the lesser sex, fell in love with a sculpture that he made of the perfect woman and spent his life giving it gifts until, in mercy, Aphrodite granted his wife his wish and gave it life. A legendary emperor in search of a perfect robe also, we all know, ended up unclothed before his kingdom, and this yearning for perfection continues to infect us as a species as we search for the perfect spouse or the perfect house or the perfect time or the perfect life, or just, as Perlu read, the perfect day. No matter how hard it is to define, we all strive for perfection. In fact, Heston Blumenthal, the Jewish-British celebrity chef, known for his invention of the delicious-sounding bacon and eggs ice cream and snail porridge, presented a BBC series called In Search of Perfection, in which he traveled the world in search of the perfect specimen of each nation's favorite food. In the United States, this took him to a small diner called Louis' Lunch in New Haven, Connecticut, where the hamburger is said to have been born. And from there he went on to visit an expert in seam butchery and a gastronomy lab where he weighed and carved and glazed and marveled at the different tastes of different cuts of marbled meat, all in search of perfection. And as is always the case, it remains elusive, which is perhaps why a year later he presented another series called Further Adventures in Search of Perfection, and 2 years after that, one called In Search of Total Perfection. All the while, a Frenchman believed that he found perfection in 1892 when he boiled cream, eggs, sugar, and syrup and named the resulting concoction the parfait, which of course in English means perfect. But we are all in luck, because this morning we read a text that bequeaths us the meaning of that which we seek. We are given the living definition of perfection in the person of our third patriarch. While his brother is a hunter and Ish Sadeh, a man of the field, our forefather Yaakov is an Ish Tam, a perfect man, whose perfection is then characterized as Yoshev Ohalim, who dwelled in tents. And this is my question. What does that mean? Why does Yaakov's residential preference tell us about his ethical temperament? What does his domestic predilection tell us about his moral complexion? What can we profitably glean from the fact that he sat in tents? How does that help us in our pursuit of perfection? And to be even more pedantic, why does the text embrace a grammatical pluralism and say Yoshev Ohalim, he dwelled in tents, rather than the simpler singular Yoshev Ohel, he dwelled in a tent? After all, his brother is labeled Ish Sadeh, a man of the field, not Ish Sadot, a man of fields. And there are three perspectives on Yaakov's perfection that I'd like to share with you today, starting in Orléans in 12th century France with the poet and Tosafist Yosef Bechoshar. And for him, the text plurality suggests that Yaakov's perfection, and perhaps ours as well, lies in a commitment to constancy. In his words, Ro'im osim ohalim, shepherds make tents, mipnei hatzina umipnei hachama, due to the cold and due to the heat. So as a huntsman, his brother Esav's activity was tied to the rhythm of the hunted, where hibernation meant an extensive hiatus from his occupation, and a successful catch meant days of recreation before needing to return to the trail. But as a shepherd, Yaakov's responsibilities knew no repose. Each day, his charge would remain under his supervision. Neither rain nor snow nor heat or sleet would allow him to cease his responsibility to the sheep. He was an ish tam, a perfect man, Yoshev Ohalim, dwelling in tents, no matter the season, engaged every single day with his labor. So for the Bechor Shor, if it is perfection that we seek, we will find it in constancy. But if we go south from Orleans to Bologna, we come to the reading of the philosopher and the physician Avodah Sforno. And for him, the text's plurality implies that perfection is found in something far more intricate than mere consistency. We are told that Yaakov dwelt in tents not simply because he had different weather-dependent fabrics, but because, in his word, Shnei Minei Ohalim, there are two kinds of tent. Ha'echad ohel ro'eh, one is the tent of the shepherd, portable. V'hasheni, and the second, Ohel Bal Yitzan, is a stationary tent. Shabo hitbonen, where one can study lahakibar, to recognize the Creator, v'nikdash b'chvodo, and sanctify His glory. So for the Sforno, Yaakov lived a life of perfect harmony, of balance, juggling responsibilities to the familial economy on the one hand and cosmic theology on the other. He was a shepherd and a scholar, a man of deed and a man of rumination, living both what the medieval masters called the vita activa and the vita contemplativa. In this reading, Yaakov would be very much at home in the world of Torah Umada, or at the very least Torah Uparnasa, recognizing that the perfect life is a life poised between our assorted responsibilities to self, family, nation, world, and ultimately God. But there is a third perspective on Yaakov's perfection and ours, which brings us back to France and is found in the commentary of the 12th century philologist Rabbi David Kimchi, the Radak. And in this instance, he is a grammatical maximalist and sees the text's pluralism as not limited to two. For him, Lashon Rabim, it says tents in the plural. Ki haya lomed im kol chacham shahaya motza, because he would learn with every single sage that he could find, imzeh, with this one and with that one. It is true that the Radak limits the sense of the tents to the scholarly kind, as opposed to those of the shepherd, but he extends the numerical reference exponentially. Yaakov does not simply have either a winter and summer tent or a portable and permanent tent, but he spends his life pursuing truth from tent to tent to tent. He sees Yaakov's perfection, his depiction as an ish tam, as characterized by an unquenchable, relentless, unremitting, and endless quest for betterment. The Radak understands perfection in the same way that the 15th century Italian humanist Lucilio Vanini, who said perfectio propter imperfectionem, that perfection is rooted in the awareness of our imperfection and the eternal pursuit of its remedy. Living the perfect life depends on recognizing our incompleteness, which unleashes our radical responsibility to seek more meaning and enact more healing and incrementally redeem all that remains undone. Leonard Cohen, in his song Anthem, wrote, "Forget your perfect offering, there is a crack in everything. That is how the light gets in." It is our embrace of our imperfection that defines our greatness and warrants Yaakov's depiction as an ish tam. In fact, on March 11th of 1952, the greatest theoretical physicist of the 20th or any century wrote to his biographer when he was asked which unique talents led him to postulate the kind of inconceivable notions that changed the state of the scientific landscape, and he said, "Ich habe keine besondere Begabung, sondern bin unleidenschaftlich neugierig," which means, I have no special talent, but I am only passionately curious. If it is perfection that we seek, if we aspire to be an ishtam or an isha tamima, it may well begin with our embrace of our imperfection, passionate curiosity, and the commitment to constantly improve, to be a perpetual seeker of truth, not to dwell in a single tent, but to be a Yoshev Ohalim. So let us all learn from everyone in every way, and so may today and every day be a perfect day. And I wish you a perfect week. Shavua Tov.